Today's date is 3/30/25, so March 30th, and I will be interviewing my grandpa, who is Howard Rosen, and I am Dylan Rosen, about his Talit. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I will ask questions that will help me learn more about you, our family's history, especially our Jewish history. Are you ready?
Yep. Yes, I am.
Who were you named after, if you were named after anyone?
Uh, Honestly, I do not know. I don't know who was Howard or where the name came from. I did not know very many of my relatives. Both grandmothers and one grandfather was already deceased by the time I was born.
Do you have a Hebrew name?
Chaim.
In class, I learned about the immigration of Jews to the U.S. and other places. Do you know where your parents, grandparents, or great grandparents immigrated from?
My parents were born here. They were born in Baltimore, 1905 and 1908. My mom's father, I believe, was from Lithuania, somewhere outside of Vilnius. And to the best of my knowledge, my father's father was from Belarus, Minsk, in that area.
Do you know
The,
anything about Jewish life there?
I do not. At the time that they were there, it wasn't a good time. I would only know that from history, not from talking to my parents.
Was anyone in the family affected by the Holocaust in Europe or like by pogroms in Russia and Poland?
Um, Again, I would be guessing. No, I would be guessing from the Holocaust. I don't believe so. I had never heard about that from my parents. Pogroms probably would have impacted them and the part of the world that they lived in.
Can you tell me anything about do you know anything about our family's immigration to the U.S.? For example,
They did immigrate to the U.S. Again, I only know a little bit about one side, and my grandfather on my mother's side immigrated during the presidency of Grover Cleveland. Now, Grover Cleveland was had two separate terms. I was never able to determine which one, whether he came here in the 1880s or the 18 somewhere between the 1870s and 1890s. I know nothing about the history from my father's side as to when they came here.
was he like the only immigrant from our family, or were there other
They were
immigrants
no,
from?
they both immigrated. Both grandparents immigrated.
Now I would like to just take a look at the Talit.
Yes.
Uh, where did you get this artifact, this Talit? Like, did you just buy it in a store, or
Bought it in the store. It wasn't anybody's. It had no real significance other than it was for my bar mitzvah, which was 69 years ago.
the? Do you know where it came from? Like, where was it made, or
I do not.
exactly where you bought it?
It was from a store that sold Jewish artifacts and Jewish things.
Do you know how old it is, or did you buy it brand new, or was it
It was new,
older?
so it's approximately 70 years old.
Where did you grow up, and who lived with you when you were growing up?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and before I was 1 year old, I moved to New York City to Manhattan, and I moved there with my sister, my parents.
Like,
Everybody, the rest of the family was in Baltimore.
Tell me a little about your school life, like your favorite teachers, favorite subjects, friends. Like,
Well, I went to PS 132 in Manhattan. I was there for 6 years. I went to junior high school 115. I was there for 2 years. And I then went to Brooklyn Tech for 4 years. I spent 1 year of college out in Peoria, Illinois at Bradley University. And I then transferred back east and I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, which is the same school that Grandma, my wife, went to. That's not exactly where I met her. Grandma happened to live around the corner from me. So I met her just hanging out. Favorite subjects. In college, I majored in science and bio and chemistry. I had hoped or I'd wanted at the time to be a dentist. I had a very bad car accident when I was just 20 years old. And I had to rethink what it is that I wanted to do because it impaired my physical, my ability to use my hands in the manner that would be necessary for a dentist. Um, I always liked history. History was always one of my favorite subjects. I was good in math, do a lot of things in my head with math. But interestingly enough, in high school, I didn't take a single bio class because Brooklyn Tech didn't offer it. I took French in high school. Um, we did not have to take the Regents at that school because we took an additional element of French. We learned in French we learned some science, and therefore we did not require to take a Regents exam. New York State requires Regents exams in all your major subjects: English, math, all the math subjects, and science. So I didn't have to do that because I went to that school.
did you go to like a synagogue or any Jewish like gathering area?
The family was not religious at all. Um, quite candidly, when I grew up, we had Santa Claus, we had a Christmas tree. My grandfather was Orthodox, and whenever he would visit or we would visit him, he passed away in the early 1960s. He was 92 years old. Uh, and when he came up, uh, he uh, he would say his prayers. He would go to the local synagogue. He rep he had tefillin in the morning. He would say, his prayers. In our house, I would say we were pretty much non-sectarian in terms of any holidays or anything that we did or celebrated. We had very little family in the area as well. My father had a sister who lived in the Bronx, and she had twin boys, and that was about it. Nobody ever really saw anybody that often.
Like, what was meaningful to you about your bar mitzvah?
Um, this is being recorded. Okay. Well, I had some issues with the rabbi, so he threw me out of Hebrew school, and I had to take my lessons from the cantor. I will say that the rabbi was pretty instrumental in me not really wanting to follow through much after I was bar mitzvahed. He was not a positive influence. He was pretty negative influence on me. That plus the family, didn't do anything especially to encourage. any faith-based following. But one thing for sure, I knew I was Jewish when I grew up. I lived in a neighborhood that was predominantly Jewish. All of my friends were Jewish, very few non-Jewish friends. And so I was always surrounded by Jewish people. And my Jewishness is more, to me, of an ethnicity than a religious practice.
What is your favorite, or what, as like a child, what was your favorite Jewish holiday?
All of them. Anyone that I was off from school. No, Rosh Hashanah was always very important, and New Year was always very important, and Yom Kippur was very solemn. Then we celebrated Christmas mostly. Yeah, we didn't do very much for Hanukkah, and Passover, unless we were invited to somebody's house, we were non-observant. We were mostly non-observant through the entire time that I lived with my parents.
Uh, what you do for Rosh Hashanah?
We did not go to synagogue. We stayed home, and we just celebrated the New Year the same way we would celebrate a regular New Year. It's just okay. It's the Jewish New Year. Let's celebrate, and that's what we did.
What were some like traditions? So foods, physical traditions
Um,
that were Jewish, I guess.
Very few, if any. Uh, I knew not to drink milk with meat, and that's about as far as we went. My grandfather was kosher. My mom was not. I always liked chopped liver, like matzo ball soup, chicken soup, like brisket, a lot of traditional and stuffed cabbage, things like that that would be considered traditional Jewish foods.
Did anyone in your family serve in the military?
Not my uncle did. Uh, Two uncles served in the military. My immediate family, no, but my father did not serve in the military, and nor
How
did
did
I.
how'd you meet grandma?
Well, we lived in a neighborhood of high-rise buildings, and I saw Grandma one day, and she was walking around. I had my eye on her, and I said, "Well, I think I'm going to marry her," and that took many years, but and I just had a basic attraction to Grandma.
What advice would you have um for like being Jewish for generations like me and future generations?
I love the fact that your father, who is not Jewish, believes in having faith, and I think faith is very important. Whichever religion you practice, you can never forget that you are Jewish. Again, even though I don't follow the traditions, uh, because Jews, unfortunately, since the start of time, have been different and therefore have been persecuted by so many people. So you can never forget the fact that you are Jewish. And to me, it means the type of family, the family life that you have, things that you like. Education is important, culture is important, music is important, um, and and family ties are very important. Uh, th- there's always family, and I have a very small family, but family has a very special place.
So I think that is the end of the recording. Um,
Okay.
thank you for answering my questions.